Hi there, this is Daniel Lane, and this is my portion of the project, and it's called Oprah's Greatest Mentors. Her first mentor was actually a book called The Color Purple by Alice Walker, and what happened is that she picked up a newspaper while still in bed, and she read the review on that book, The Color Purple, and got up, went downstairs, put a robe on, went to the bookstore, started reading the book in the bookstore, and ended up buying it, taking it home, and reading the entire book in one day out of passion because she felt as if the book was telling her story. And she goes back to the bookstore, buys all the copies they have, starts giving the books away, and through of all of that, she felt inclined to start praying about that book and potential for it to maybe have a movie or something. I don't know all the details, but her phone ends up ringing one day, and they're having an audition for a movie called The Cool Moon. Well, Oprah had been praying for a movie about the color purple, and so she's like, "Are you sure it's called The Cool Moon?" They're like, "Yeah." She's like, "What?" So she ends up going to the audition. She gets a copy of the transcripts. She reads over them. She sees the two main characters' names, Sophia and Harpo, and she knew instantly that it was actually The Color Purple with the name change, basically. And she is so moved, and she thinks it's like completely God. And one of the interesting things was that Harpo, which is one of the main characters, is actually Oprah's name spelled backwards. And so she said that she thought it was just an amazing picture of Christ and the church, those two characters. And so she ends up getting rejected from one of the producers. And so she leaves, and she thinks it's because she's too fat. So she ends up going to a fat camp to try to lose weight. Well, while she's at the fat camp, like a day into it, she gets a call from Steven Spielberg, who's actually the main producer, and says, "Hey, look, I heard you're at a fat camp. Don't lose any weight. We need you to be right where you're at for your part. Come back. We want you to audition." She comes back. She gets the part. And she says, in her words, that nothing in her life has had a greater impact on her than The Color Purple, that book and that movie. It has affected her emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically in determining her path. It changed her faith because she says, "I could see it, it was real." And she says that The Color Purple set her up for her national Oprah Winfrey show. Okay, so moving on. The next biggest influencer in her life was Maya Angelou. She started out reading her books, basically read like all of her books, some of them more than once, and I don't know how the original meeting transpired, but she ends up going to her house, and she says she had like an outer body experience where she couldn't believe she was in Maya's house, and she just kind of felt like she was out of body. And I guess Maya ended up cooking her a meal and reading her poetry, and she was just so impressed and so moved by her. Well, obviously their relationship ends up growing like amazing, like sister mother relationship, and Maya ends up being one of her greatest mentors ever. Okay, so moving on, Nelson Mandela was also kind of a mentor in her life from afar, based off of his life, what he did with apartheid, why he was in prison, his writings as a president, just his whole life. She ends up going to his house and stays 10 days. They just kind of hit it off. She ends up giving $10 million to his country to build a school. The same day she made the offer, he had her go into the meeting and make final arrangements. More I could say about that. For the sake of time, I'm moving on. In more recent days, T.D. Jakes, preacher out of Dallas, the Potter's House, has really been an influencer in her life. She says she listens in every Sunday morning, and she's gone to the Potter's House a few times. When she's in Dallas, she tries to go on Sundays. And then another one would be Tony Robbins and some other motivational speakers. She's gone to some of their meetings and been impacted. Out of time, so Tristan Michelle, Matthew, Sharon, and myself have hoped that you have enjoyed the Oprah Winfrey's history, her managerial style, her keys to success in business, her success as a humanitarian, and her greatest mentors. Thank you very much for watching. God bless.